Hi, everybody. Sorry about my voice. I actually have COVID. So I sound terrible. Um, it's when the Tylenol wears off that you can really feel it. So if I cough or something, it's going to sound alarming. I'm fine. It's been going on. I tested for it yesterday evening, and that's really when sort of I started to feel the decline. So it's so strange. It's actually a really busy time, and I was a little resentful. And today's also my birthday, and I was a little resentful that I was not going to have a quiet birthday. And then, the universe clearly delivered and said, hey, if you want a quiet birthday, I'll give you a quiet birthday. And so I got a quiet birthday. Um, so we do need to talk about this full moon. It's actually, in terms of aspects, it's really simple. It's a full moon that is conjunct a retrograde Mars. So it's a full moon in Gemini. Mars is retrograde in Gemini. So you've got the sun in Sagittarius, you've got the moon in Gemini, and a retrograde Mars in Gemini. Outside of this, the only aspect that is forming is a square between Venus and Jupiter. Now, I've done a video on Mars and Gemini before. As a quick reminder, when it comes to full moons, not only can there be heightened activity, but more importantly, the full moon brings visibility to, or an intuitive awareness to, subject matters related to the part of the chart that it's transiting, particularly when it's full. Now, you've heard me describe the full moon as the time when new moon, the wave starts to move towards the shore. Full moon is when it crashes to the shore. So as it heads to the full moon, it reaches sort of maximum velocity and energy and volume. Excuse me. You've heard me refer to the full moon as a pot of milk coming to a boil. We've talked about tantrums, we've talked about tears, we've talked about, but also with a full moon, because the moon governs our intuitive and emotional awareness, our internal compass, especially when it's conjunct a retrograde Mars, it may bring an intuitive clarity to something that you have been wondering about. And with a retrograde Mars, Mars is the male planet, and again, as you know, to simplify things, I talk about Mars as the pursuit of goals in hunting and gathering. And if you look at Venus as the feminine archetype, care, nurture, connection to natural flow, Mars' duty or job becomes to protect that natural flow and to protect whatever it is that, and the protection occurs both in the pursuit of goals and the getting of things, the necessities and the things you desire, and desire is a really important word as far as Mars is concerned, but it also is about drawing boundaries and protecting whatever needs to be protected. So conflict, wars, battles, coming into conflict with others becomes, excuse me, I warned you about this, becomes part of this energy. Now, Mars is retrograde, so the energy is unlikely to be direct. So what you may be getting an intuitive awareness of is what I will call covert, at best, a kind of warfare, at its mildest, a kind of interference. Whatever it is, there's a covertness to it. And it's not direct. It's not as though if someone has a problem with you or they need to address something or they need to talk about it, that they're coming to you directly and saying, hey, I need to talk to you about this, or addressing it to you. Things like gossiping, backbiting, what we refer to as bitching, backstabbing. It's a retrograde Mars. So at its worst, it would include an awareness of situations or people or places who do not have your best interests at heart, who may not want you to shine, who, with Mars, competition and competitive feelings can be involved, who are feeling competitive towards you, and they're not just feeling competitive towards you, they're actually taking actions against you somehow to gain ground or to solidify certain things, etc. So it's a kind of a, but with a full moon next to it, you may come into this particular time period with a, oh, I'm not wrong about this, or, something's not right here, or, interesting, or, okay, now I have some more proof that however someone is presenting themselves to me is not exactly the way, and it may be that either they or you, because it depends on where Gemini is in your chart. So are you the one who is doing this behavior? Are they the ones who are doing this behavior? There's a chess playing to it. The confrontation is not direct. The attack is not direct. The word is manipulative. That's the word. And the other word that comes to mind is retreat. So it could also be that there's a softness around this energy, but the softness is tinged with the pursuit of another agenda. So it could be that behaviors or communications or activities or actions that come across as soft, that feel a little bit like someone is waving a white flag, could well include that component, but there's something else behind it. There's still an agenda behind it. There's still something someone desires, a desired outcome. With Mars, Mars sees a direct line between it and what it wants. There's a rapacious quality to it. There's an inability to hear the word no. There is an inability to honor the word no, or I don't want you to do it this way, or I'm not interested. It's like, I'm going to ignore all that and I'm still going to go for whatever it is that I want. So the approach may be a little bit soft around it. So just have that awareness. With a retrograde Mars, there could also be a lack of vitality. And I cough on cue. There can be a lack of vitality because Mars governs your energy and your vitality and your ability to move around and get things done and feel really good and all that kind of stuff. So the other interesting thing about the Mars retrograde period is that Mars makes a square to Neptune 3 times and a trine to Saturn 3 times. Mars goes direct on January the 12th, and then Mars remains in Gemini till March the 25th. So whatever it is that is brewing currently and developing and growing isn't likely going to get resolution till about the end of March. It's fascinating. And a long time ago, when we were talking about the eclipses in the early part of the year and the first Mercury retrograde this year, I had given you the heads up that the Gemini part of the chart was becoming increasingly important due to this Mars retrograde, because there were people associated with the Gemini part of the chart who were going to support the Taurus eclipses, the North Node eclipses, where you need to develop, where you need to grow, and where they were going to challenge or become part of the kind of loss or gaslightiness or murky behavior associated with the Pisces part of the chart. With the curious relationship that we've had for the past couple of years between the sign of Aquarius and the sign of Taurus, Saturn squaring Uranus in Taurus, this is where this reading becomes a little bit more detailed. And just bear with me for those of you who are new to astrology or don't know your chart, or, because for those people who do, I just want to point this out to you. Mars is squares to Neptune, the 3 squares to Neptune, on October 12th, November 19th, and March 14th. Highlight actions being taken while Mars is retrograde covertly. Whatever this energy is in Pisces that we've described as gaslighty, or that we've described as nebulous, or that we've described as leading to a certain type of loss, you have the opportunity to confront it. Via people associated, excuse me, and people associated with the Gemini part of the chart play some sort of a role in it. Confront it by the end of March. even sooner, by the middle of March. So if you know the Pisces part of the chart and there are things that are going on there that make you uncomfortable, that you suspect, that are associated with loss or nebulous behavior, or and when I say associated with the Pisces part of the chart, I mean the house occupied by the sign of Pisces in your chart and what that house stands for, the people, the things, the areas of life. If in the Pisces part of your chart you feel like you're dealing with a certain amount of nebulous behavior, then Mars in Gemini might give you the ability to confront whatever needs to be confronted there. And the Gemini people associated with this loss, deception, gaslighting in your life depends on where Gemini sits on your chart and which house it occupies and which people sit in that part of the chart. Right now, while Mars is retrograde, and with this full moon, whatever's going on while Mars is retrograde may still feel covert and may still feel white flaggy, but once it could be a good time to get your ducks in a row too. It could be a good time to do your homework as well. The other thing with Mars retrograde is let's take the aspect of surrender and let's take the aspect of relinquishing conflict as well. Why am I fighting this battle? What do I desire and why do I desire it? What do I want out of this particular part of my chart, the Gemini part of the chart, the house it occupies and what that house stands for? What is my relationship with whatever it is that I feel? This conflict that I'm feeling, is it real? Is it not? How much do I care about it? While Mars is retrograde, I don't know that it isn't worth it to think about the Gemini part of the chart and the relationship it has with the Pisces part of your chart and the Aquarius and Taurus part of your chart, and redefine some goals with regard to what you want to pursue here and how you want to pursue it while Mars is retrograde till January 12th, which is not that far away. Nothing wrong, as I said in my Mars in retrograde video, nothing wrong with feeling like you are retreating or pulling back, moving back. But it's not a passive moving back as much as it is, and that's the other word with this Mars retrograde, passive aggressive, that term, behind the scenes. But it's still, if it is conflict related, it's still an attack. For those of you who are dealing with that kind of energy or have an intuitive awareness around that kind of energy. One more thing I'm going to mention. When you have a full moon, the sun is opposite the moon. It's conjunct a retrograde Mars. So you also have a full Mars. With the full moon conjuncting Mars, there's an intuitive awareness. With the sun opposing Mars, it becomes more than intuitive. It brings with it, Mars is visible in its retrograde form now. It's lit up. You may have a clearer sense of your relationship with the people associated with the Gemini part of your chart, or the desires or the goals associated with the Gemini. That, I think, is actually in some ways the most constructive way to use this full moon and this time till the middle of January, which is perhaps to redefine your relationship with the people and the things associated with the Gemini house in your chart, and to determine who you're in conflict with, why you're in conflict with them, what relationship they may or may not have with the Pisces part of your chart, how it is that they, and it could be a separate they, in other words, it could be two different groups of people who are, one group is supporting and constructive and instrumental in helping you move towards the Taurus North Node and the Saturn in Aquarius transit, again, happening through March. And one group could be somehow involved in or roped into or an active agent in the nebulous gaslighting that is occurring in the Pisces part of your chart. What is your relationship? What do you know for certain? What do you not know? With Mars retrograde, taking advantage of the passivity to not just fight blindly, to try and get some clarity to understand where it is that you want to build bridges rather than burn them, to determine if someone is outstretching their hand, even if there's an agenda behind it, to determine whether you just want to end that conflict or not. Excuse me. To really pay attention to, perhaps this is the most important part of it, to really try and determine and come down to the top most important goals with the Gemini part of your chart with regard to supporting Taurus and Aquarius parts of your chart and confronting or protecting yourself with this relationship between the Gemini and Pisces part of your chart. I told you it would get a little bit specific. So knowing your chart and knowing where Gemini and Pisces and Aquarius and Taurus sit could really help bring that part into focus. People associated with the Gemini part of your chart could support the Taurus and Aquarius parts of your chart, and they could be involved in, could be a different group of people associated with the Gemini part of your chart here, some of the nebulousness in the Pisces part of your chart, or the loss or the gaslighting. And as I said, while Mars is retrograde, nothing wrong with thinking about what actions you actually need to take, how you need to prioritize what you need to prioritize, and how you need to go about it and what your goals really are. But coming back to this full moon, awareness and visibility of covert or planned, or, you could just get a sense of this is not that clean. In other words, you could get a sense of interference. You could get a sense of someone, how some people play ringleaders, or some people just like to manipulate things, or play puppet master, or, you could just be like, it could be relatively benign, but you could just be like, this is not genuine. In other words, and sometimes it can be someone who's just trying to get things done, and they just decide to communicate with you in a way that keeps things moving along, but is not directly confrontational. And so the way they do that is by diverting or making something not look like what it is, and it can be benign. It could just be, hey, I don't really want to get into this drama, so I'm just gonna, I don't think it's important and whatever. But covert warfare or passive aggressiveness or backbiting or behind the scenes maneuvering, there could be a certain amount of visibility towards it. Lack of vitality. When Mars is retrograde and when Mars transits the 12th house, lack of vitality can become an issue. At the same time, it's nice to have the edge off, because Mars provides an edge and a drive, and it's kind of nice to get to a point. If you find since October 20th that your attitude has been a lot more, it'll work itself out, then that might be part of the Mars retrograde energy at work as well. With Venus squaring Jupiter, Venus is in Sagittarius, Jupiter is in Pisces. It's a question of what it is that Venus needs to do in the Sagittarius part of the chart that aids Jupiter in doing and creating the new beginning in the Pisces part of the chart. Now, I'm going to leave it at that, but in that sentence, there's a lot to consider. So what is it that needs to be done through the lens of self-love and your priorities, and you're growing where you are, and you're growing in the Sagittarius part of the chart? What needs to be done there to facilitate or allow Jupiter to create the new beginning, new 12, 13-year cycle that it is trying to create in the Pisces part of your chart? Thank you for all your support. Feel free to share this video, like it, comment on it, etc. I will be back in touch. Click the subscribe button and the bell icon on top of the subscribe button, and that way you'll be notified. It's the bell icon and then there's a wiggly bell on top. Click on that, and then you'll be notified whenever I do new videos. And I will see you soon, hopefully sounding less nasal or whatever, or gravelly. All right, I will see you soon. Take care.